Hi guys, welcome back to Clockwork Noodles. This is the penultimate episode for To Your Eternity. This is episode 19. There is only one episode left, and I think it's going to be a tearjerker. But before we get going, make sure you guys are subscribed. Very shortly, I am releasing my wrap up. So it'll be the wrap up for this season. You'll get to know my top 3 anime and my honorable mention, or I'm calling it the Hidden Gem Award now. It's turned into the Hidden Gem Award. So, what is my hidden gem for this season as well? That should be up with you guys within a few weeks now because the season is coming to a close. But what is going on for the next season? Fall is looking like it's going to be a big one. I'm very excited. There's a lot of big names coming out next season. And this channel is going to be a very busy channel next season. So make sure you're aware of what is coming your way. There is also a Discord channel too for you guys. Notifications to your phone whenever videos are released on the channel. And it also keeps you up with any delays that there may be because this video was slightly delayed. So let's jump straight to it because this was a fun episode which a lot happened. The main themes are the idea of power balance and a shift going on because this is mainly all about trying to see how powers can shift, and it ends up giving us quite a satisfying ending. Hayase showing us how much of a power she really is, and this is one of the characters up until this point in this entire season mainly because she came in during the second arc with March and she's made it pretty much all the way to the end, and it doesn't look like she's going anywhere anytime soon. Hayase is terrifying. She's even able to freak out the fake boobs but go, no, you're not getting in my arm, I'm scary, you don't want to be part of me, although they might get their wish at the end anyway. She's up to old tricks. The murder of a child is just irresistible, so she tries to go in to kill Tonari and her friend, but thankfully Fushi gets in the way. However, Fushi's inability to kill Ayase is what has made her as threatening as she is because she can use that to her advantage. She knows that he can't kill her. The music this week is building, especially during this first half. It really does start to build up. It's getting ready for the action-based finale that this really is. This episode feels like a finale. I think I know what they're doing next week. I think next week's not going to be a surprise to me anyway. But it's definitely feeling like this is our main wrap-up. This episode here is the wrap-up to the action at the most. I don't think next week's going to be too action-based. But the finale is upon us and the music is dramatic. I love the music. I think the music has been such a high point for this anime for me because the music itself has been able to tell a story. The knockers end up being wiped out quite quickly by Gugu's fire powers, but this is where our main challenge begins, the challenge of the episode. Can Fushi bring himself to kill friends? Even though, if you are theoretically thinking about it, they have already died. Is he able to kill people who look like his friends? Fushi this week mainly having this clash of conscience, and I think a lot of it comes down to the way that he's thinking, trying to see how he is able to overcome this hurdle, the hurdle that he can't bring himself to end everything, which is what is very, very important. And there are a few important moments a bit later on which end up allowing him to do what it is he does in the end, allowing him to overcome this hurdle of actually needing to put something to the end for the best. But leaving Hayase alive still is gonna still be one of his big issues because she definitely makes an appearance back at the end, but she's just gonna keep coming back, and I think that's even gonna be the same if they do make a season 2. I don't know if they're gonna make a season 2. She is most definitely gonna be in the second season, and I think especially with what we saw at the end, she's gonna come back as a very scary knocker who's gonna be maybe even part sentient, that she has more control over her being because of how strong-willed she really is. Fushi's struggling where he really does need to just see them as something that needs putting to the end for a mercy killing. So it's not just a killing for the sake of killing. He needs to understand that sometimes putting something out of its misery is for the best. Tonari blaming herself. So we have a little quiet moment before it gets kicked up again with the two. Fushi really trying to overcome this hurdle, but also seeing that Tonari really blaming herself. During this moment, I was just thinking to myself, the anime has time for this, and we've got these knockers who are just standing there doing nothing. So they just stand there. A lot of this would have not happened the way it did if they weren't actually just standing there, and they were a lot more angry and wanted to actually take Fushi for their own if they were really serious about it. But we do get our emotional breakdown where the music now changes. The music now laments. It's sad. I heard this one last week and I said it felt exotic. It really feels like a Spanish acoustic electric guitar. So it's got a lot of finger picking. We can hear the strings. I think it sounds nice, but it also is quite sad. It's a moment where the guys need to reflect. Both of the characters are reflecting at this point. Hayase coming back because, of course, Fushi couldn't put an end to her, where she's deciding to dangle Tonari over the fire pit. But all I gotta think is, she does this for quite some time. She actually dangles her with one arm over the fire pit for a very long time. And I think Hayase did actually wipe him out with the sleeping draft again. Tonari is a dead weight. And at this point, it's showing you how strong she is. She's able to hold her with one arm for quite some time. This now leads us to a moment of negotiation. Although I say it's negotiations, it's Hayase, it's a threat. One person's going to die, another person's going to die. But it does get us to a point now where Fushi seemingly has no way out. He has to make a decision. Should Hayase be the one to kill the three that they really can't do because they can't kill their friends? Or will Tonari also die by her hand? It's one or the other. She's really trying to back him into a corner to take her advice or actually call her and say, I need you to do this for me. But there isn't, of course, any win for Fushi. This is a negotiation with no win for Fushi. Either way, somebody he cares about is going to end up being put to an end, although three of them are technically already dead, so you could technically see where the logical way out was. More twisted thinking by Hayase as she calls Fushi a perfect being as long as he's unable to kill anybody. He is still perfect to her as long as he's not able to bring himself to kill anybody, even though that does change at the end. We get our first twist. Up until this point, led to believe there's only one way out. Either the friends are going to die or Tonari is going to die. But Tonari tries to sacrifice herself. I think this is the moment that might have tricked me into believing she was going to die, because this is the moment they used in the OP with her crying blood over, and it looked like she was falling. But obviously this doesn't happen, and we do have our fake out this week. But it was definitely this moment where she decides to sacrifice herself. I'm also trying not to think about the physics here because I don't understand how this move even works, with her being able to dislodge her and pull her in with her. Tries to take out Hayase at the same time. I do believe Hayase just was not expecting Tonari to wake up so quickly and also try and determine her own fate. It's a very smooth transition as well. But it is a fake out because Fushi manages to grab both of them in time, and somehow he has time to put Hayase to sleep. There's a lot of things I just don't want to think about too much this episode because there's a few little holes in this episode that appear. But the decision should definitely be made without Hayase trying to heat the emotions up. Fushi decides finally to do the one thing that he initially couldn't decide to do. He is going to be the one to end his friends' lives, put them out of their misery. I think a part of this decision too is coming down to the fact that I don't think Tonari would have lived with this. I think Fushi sees this because she really is in tears when she grabs the sword. Fushi sees this and he decides to make that decision for them, and he decides to take on the burden himself. Fushi ends up trying to protect Tonari, and I like the fact that they also use the sword that the narrator gave them, because the narrator even said you're only going to need this sword for this job. Did he foresee this? Did he actually know this was all going to happen? There's a lot of questions I'd like to ask the narrator at some point. I do believe the use of the black screen at the end is similar to the use of silence when it comes to movie and in music. It has a greater impact. We don't need to see it. You know what happened. You can imagine what happened. It's a moment where you just need a black screen. A black screen is all you need. Now, Tonari is still the island leader. Her sacrifice and the sacrifice of these innocent children ends up being something that seems to signal a hope or a future for the island, which is something that I didn't think would be the case. But it does seem that everybody on the island is now more united than before. This kid also didn't make it off the island. Tonari said anybody below 7 was allowed off the island. We do see a bit later on, there's actually quite a few kids who are still on the island. But we finally get some hope for the island. No more killing, no more keeping a mountain of bodies. There seems to be hope for the future. Tonari decides that she wants to stay and try and clean up the island. And it does seem that everybody on the island is finally being united by this tragedy. The idea of her making it into a city makes me wonder if we're ever going to see this place again in the future as a city, whether we are going to see Tonnery really have that impact on the island, make her own story, and finally make the island an actual place that we might get to visit later on, and it's going to be a complete 180 of it being completely different. But I do worry that as soon as Fushi leaves the island, so is the food. As soon as he goes, the food is going to go with them. I think these guys were struggling for food anyway. It's going to take a lot of change to get this island back on its feet. Now, the last little chunk, I think, is one of the best chunks as well. Fushi taking Hayase with him to leave the island. I do wonder if there will be a reunion at some point in the future between Tonnery and Fushi, because it does seem that they were hinting that there might be a reunion at some point, maybe in season 2. Tonnery tells him, I'm going to come and find you someday, maybe. I think that there might be a chance that we are going to see the two reunite at some point. That would be great. That would be one of the first happy reunions we get. Is there a chance that Fushi might reunite with people like Rin at some point? Hayase getting a seemingly quick happy ending when she wakes up to Fushi, her beloved, as she tells him she is in love with him. I believe you are not in love with Fushi, but you are in love with his D. You just want the D. I believe she really does want to have a kid with him. I don't know why. But she then says that it's either that or she's happy to become one with Fushi. If you kill me, I will become one of your forms. I mean, she would be a very strong form to have. However, as Fushi says, I will never feel anything. So even if she dies, he probably won't take on her form. I was wondering why Fushi didn't take on the forms of the 3 kids who died. Not quite sure why, but it does seem that him choosing forms has to be something that he feels for, because he became the mole and he felt really sad about the mole because he accidentally kills the mole. So maybe he really has to feel sad for them to be able to take on their form. And I really don't think he's ever going to feel anything for Hayase, so he probably is never going to take on her form. Him making an entire new boat and then kicking her and leaving her in the boat is perhaps one of the best rejection scenes in anime. This was fantastic. Just being like, yeah, I'm noping the hell out of here. You can stay in this boat. I don't care what happens to you. And whether it's a rest in peace Hayase, I don't think it's cut and dry here. I think she's going to become a formidable foe for season 2. I think it's going to be the first time we maybe see a knocker who has got some kind of consciousness or able to be both alive and dead at the same time. I believe she's going to be absolutely terrifying as a foe. She had the ability to talk to the knocker as it was trying to enter her arm and then fling it out. It was seemingly listening to her. So I think it's going to be a case that she's going to come back. And this is going to be one of those characters who keeps on coming back at some point. She's going to be back in season 2. I think she's going to come back in this zombified form. I think it's going to be freaky. But the full orchestra finally kicks in at the end, as the narrator is told actually not to F off for once. This is quite nice. It's a nice little bit in the boat with him just being like, hey, how do I get to shore? I think next week is going to be a tearjerker, but maybe we'll finally get to see a character who doesn't get wiped out by any unnatural causes. A great ending to the Tonnery arc. I think next week we're just going to have a similarly quiet ending. I think it's going to be sad as well, though. I think it is going to have a punch at the end. But it definitely leads me to go, are we going to get a season 2? Has To Your Eternity been popular enough to show the studio we need more? I would love to see more about this story. I will obviously give you guys my full thoughts at the end next week of whether I thought it was worth it, what my overall score was, what my initial thoughts are, because I think the score for me is 2 halves. I think there's 2 scores going on here, and I would discuss that next week with you guys. But it is a great ending this week to put the Tonnery arc to rest, and Tonnery being one of those few characters who seems to have survived, but they could do a Perona with her and bring her back as a form next time we see her. Could also happen. Something bad could happen. We also have the seemingly questionable end to Hayase, but obviously not by anybody else's hands. I don't think that is a goodbye. I think she's coming back at some point. And I think next week is just going to be sorting out another character. And I think it's going to put us in a very tearjerky situation right at the end. So I'm very excited to see what happens next week. Quite sad that this is coming to an end now, 2 weeks before the end of this season. I can't wait to see what comes up next season though. So I've got a lot of animes that I really want to discuss with you guys. So make sure you guys are subscribed if you are finding me for the first time or have enjoyed some of the work I have done. Thank you guys for your support this season too. See you next week for the final wrap up. Bye bye.